Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things a woman might say in a relationship that you should never ignore. And I'm going to warn you right now. Some of these statements may sound completely harmless. Some may even sound romantic. Some may sound like something people say during an argument and then forget about the next morning. But sometimes, words reveal something much deeper than the words themselves. They reveal resentment. They reveal contempt. They reveal emotional disconnection. They reveal manipulation. They reveal a lack of respect. And sometimes they reveal that the relationship you're desperately trying to save is already becoming something that is damaging you. Now, before we go any further, let's make one thing very clear. This video is not saying that every woman who says one of these things should automatically be abandoned. People get angry. People make mistakes. People say things they don't mean. Relationships have difficult moments. One sentence, taken completely out of context, doesn't define an entire person. What matters is the pattern. What matters is whether the statement is repeated. What matters is whether there is accountability. What matters is whether the person is willing to communicate, repair the damage, and change the behavior. Because there's a huge difference between someone saying something during one emotional argument and someone repeatedly using the same words to belittle, control, manipulate, or emotionally punish you. So don't listen to this video looking for an excuse to abandon someone you love. Listen to it as a way to recognize patterns. Because sometimes the most dangerous relationship problems don't begin with cheating. They don't begin with screaming. They don't begin with some dramatic betrayal. Sometimes they begin with a sentence you hear, a sentence you excuse, a sentence you tell yourself isn't important, and then you hear it again and again, until eventually you realize that the sentence wasn't the problem. The mindset behind the sentence was the problem. So let's get into the 5 things you should pay very close attention to. The first one is, "You're lucky to have me." Now, on the surface, that sentence might sound confident. Maybe she's joking. Maybe she's teasing you. Maybe she says it playfully. But context matters. There's a massive difference between playful confidence and genuine contempt. A healthy partner can absolutely recognize their own value. There's nothing wrong with someone knowing they're attractive, intelligent, successful, loving, or desirable. In fact, confidence is healthy. A woman should know her worth. A man should know his worth. But when someone repeatedly communicates, "You're lucky to have me," in a serious or degrading way, the message underneath it can become, "You are beneath me. I am doing you a favor by being here. You should be grateful for my presence. You don't deserve better." And that is where things become dangerous. Because a relationship cannot remain healthy when one person constantly positions themselves above the other. Love requires equality of human value. You can have different personalities, different responsibilities, different strengths, different incomes, different roles, but neither person should constantly make the other feel inferior. And here's something people often misunderstand. Being high value doesn't mean making someone else feel low value. Real confidence doesn't require humiliation. A genuinely secure person doesn't need to repeatedly remind their partner that they could do better. They don't need to threaten their partner with replacement. They don't need to create insecurity to feel powerful. If someone constantly tells you how lucky you are to have them, ask yourself a simple question. Does this person also communicate that they're lucky to have me? Because healthy appreciation goes both ways. A healthy relationship contains gratitude in both directions. I appreciate you. I love what you bring into my life. I'm grateful for you. Those statements build connection. But if the message becomes, "You should be grateful I even tolerate you," that's completely different. And sometimes people stay because they're afraid of losing the relationship. They start trying harder. They become more agreeable. They spend more money. They give more attention. They tolerate more disrespect. They think, maybe if I become better, she'll stop saying this. But that's the wrong strategy. If someone has decided that your role is to constantly prove that you're worthy of them, There is no finish line, because the problem isn't your performance. The problem is the dynamic. You could become richer, fitter, more successful, more romantic, more generous, more attractive. And if the other person needs to feel superior, they'll simply move the goalpost. That's why you need to pay attention to patterns of contempt. Because contempt is different from criticism. Criticism says, I don't like what you did. Contempt says, there's something wrong with you. Criticism addresses behavior. Contempt attacks identity. And when contempt becomes normal in a relationship, the relationship starts becoming emotionally unsafe. So if you hear, you're lucky to have me once during a playful moment, don't panic. But if you repeatedly hear it in a serious, degrading context, don't laugh it off. Ask yourself, why does my partner need me to feel inferior in order for her to feel valuable? That's a question worth answering. Now let's move to the second statement, and this one can be even more damaging. I could do so much better than you. Think about what this sentence communicates. It doesn't simply express dissatisfaction, it creates a hierarchy. It says, there are people above you. You're failing my standard. I want you to feel replaceable. And sometimes people use this sentence strategically. They know it hurts, they know it creates insecurity, and they know that once you're insecure, you'll start working harder to prove yourself. You'll start asking, what am I doing wrong? Who is better than me? Is she talking to someone else? What can I change? And suddenly, the entire relationship becomes an audition. You're no longer enjoying the relationship. You're trying to earn your position in it. That's exhausting, and healthy love should not feel like a job interview you can never pass. Now, does that mean your partner is never allowed to want more from life? Of course not. People are allowed to have standards. People are allowed to want growth. People are allowed to decide that a relationship isn't right for them, but there is a mature way to communicate dissatisfaction. You can say, I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship. I need more emotional support. I don't think our goals are aligned. I don't think we're compatible. Those statements are honest, but saying, I could do better than you, isn't a request for improvement. It's often an attack. And there's another reason this statement matters, because people who genuinely want to leave don't need to constantly remind you that they can find someone else. They make a decision. They communicate it. They leave. When someone repeatedly threatens your position without actually leaving, sometimes the threat itself becomes the tool. It's psychological pressure. Do what I want, or I'll replace you. And if you live under that threat long enough, you can start losing your identity. You stop saying what you really think. You stop setting boundaries. You stop disagreeing. You become afraid that one mistake will cost you the relationship, and that's not healthy commitment. That's fear. And a relationship built primarily on fear is not a relationship where two people are freely choosing each other. It's a relationship where one person is constantly trying to avoid punishment. That's a huge difference. Let's imagine a simple example. A couple has an argument. The man makes a mistake. Maybe he forgot something important. Maybe he handled a situation badly. A healthy partner might say, that really hurt me. I need you to understand why. An unhealthy response might be, you're useless. I could easily find someone better. The first statement creates an opportunity for repair. The second creates shame. And shame doesn't usually produce healthy intimacy. It produces defensiveness, resentment, fear, distance, and eventually emotional exhaustion. So when you hear a statement like, I could do so much better than you, don't immediately ask, how do I become better? First ask, why is my partner communicating dissatisfaction through humiliation instead of honest communication? That question can reveal a lot. Now let's get into the third statement. This one is extremely common, and because it's so common, people often ignore how powerful it can be. You're too sensitive. Now there are situations where someone genuinely is overreacting. We all have emotional triggers. We all misunderstand things. We all sometimes react more strongly than necessary. So saying someone is sensitive doesn't automatically make someone manipulative. But when the phrase becomes a repeated response to legitimate concerns, something changes. Imagine you tell your partner, "When you joke about me in front of your friends, it embarrasses me," and she responds, "You're too sensitive." You say, "When you ignored me for 2 days after our argument, it really hurt." She says, "You're too sensitive." You say, "I don't feel respected when you talk to me like that." Again, "You're too sensitive." Eventually, you're no longer discussing her behavior. You're defending your right to have feelings, and that's a serious problem, because healthy relationships require emotional reality. You don't have to agree with someone's interpretation of an event, but you should be able to acknowledge that they experience something emotionally. There's a difference between, "I didn't intend to hurt you," and "You're not allowed to be hurt." The first is healthy, the second dismisses the person's emotional experience. And here's where the situation becomes particularly dangerous.